All right, folks. There's two words that get bandied around a lot as far as watch collecting goes. Specifically, collector versus enthusiast. Now, I don't know, I probably, before doing this video, I probably should have done a Google search to see if anyone's already done this, already talked about this. Probably somebody has, but I wanted to do a little video of how I see the two terms being different, and throwing in a third term, obsessive. So the difference between a collector and an enthusiast, it's there, but it's kind of subtle. It's subtle but significant, I would say. So a collector is someone who buys watches to keep them. A collector is somebody who, now that doesn't mean they keep all of their watches, but the intention with any watch is always to, they often have an underlying sort of collection philosophy, or it's not even just that, it's more like a theme to their collection, or they might have different collections within their larger collection. And I have talked a little bit about that, how you can have your entire collection, and then you have sub-collections. You might have your rotation, which are the watches you wear on a regular basis. And then you might have a specific thing, like you might be into vintage dive watches, or military watches, or pilot watches, or something that's based upon a theme or a type of watch. Might be 80s digital watches, who knows? So a collector is somebody who really is into the collecting aspect, and they buy watches to add to their collection, and they might even buy watches that they don't even intend upon wearing, or wearing much. And they're really into the accumulation of some kind of collection and the development of a collection, because a collection isn't something that only just is added to. A collection is also something that evolves and changes. So that's what a watch collector does, is they're formulating, creating, and evolving a collection. Now, a watch enthusiast is a little bit different. I think they're both hobbyists, so to speak. They're both horological hobbyists. But a watch enthusiast is somebody who, the difference between, I mean, maybe the best way to define an enthusiast, it's a collector who doesn't necessarily have an intention to keep every watch they buy, or doesn't necessarily buy watches to keep them or to collect them. They don't necessarily have the sub-collections, or maybe they do, but they're not, it's not like an ongoing project. In a way, an enthusiast is more in the moment of what they have, and there's less of a long-term plan to their collection. Now, they might have, in another video I just did, which was so chaotic I might not upload it, but they might have a collection end game, like an underlying intention on how to end their collection, on how to complete it. But the enthusiast isn't somebody who buys a watch and says, okay, this is where this fits in my collection in the long term. So it's a tricky thing, because they're not necessarily, you could say on one hand an enthusiast is more casual, but it doesn't mean they're less into it, right? An enthusiast might be really enthusiastic about watches, might love watches, but they don't necessarily have this, they don't have the collecting bug in the same way. They buy their watches to wear them, and they tend to sell off watches that they don't wear. So maybe that's another way of defining the difference. An enthusiast sells the watches he or she doesn't wear, whereas the collector will only sell a watch if it doesn't fit within the collection, if it doesn't have a place within the collection. So we'll throw in this third term, which is the obsessive. Now, I think you could argue that anyone who is a collector or an enthusiast is an obsessive to some degree, or at least was an obsessive. I don't think that I don't think you're doomed to be an obsessive forever. An obsessive is somebody who spends an inordinate amount of time thinking about browsing, buying, selling watches. It's not just like one of your hobbies, but it's something that you tend to there's an addictive quality almost to the obsessive watch journey, so to speak. And it's not an either-or thing. It's the same with addiction in general. Not all addicts are created equal, right? Some addicts are more or less addicted than others. Some people, you've heard the term functioning alcoholics. You could have functioning obsessives, right? And most of us are. I imagine that perhaps a non-functional obsessive would be somebody who spends their entire savings, goes into huge debt, ruins their marriage, all for watches. Now, actually, I think I know somebody like that. Huh. No, I won't mention any names though. Now, but it's rarely that extreme. I mean, maybe it's more common than I realize. I do think a lot of watch collectors don't share every purchase with their wives. Usually it's men. You know, some women are into watch collecting, but it's generally a male-dominated hobby, right? I think you can tell that. I don't know about the other YouTube watch pundits, but I think something like 97 or 98% of my viewers or subscribers, I can't remember, are male. So that says a lot. I don't think I particularly repel women. Well, maybe I do in other ways, but I don't think my channel is repulsive. I don't spout sexist bullshit like some channels do. But I think the point I'm trying to make is just that it's a very male-dominated hobby. The demographic is more veered towards men. And my guess is that while there are certainly some women collectors, most women that enjoy watches probably enjoy it like in a more toned down way, like one or two watches or a few watches. They don't get so into it like we ridiculous males do. So I think you can, there are some watch collectors or enthusiasts who are only mild obsessives, or maybe who even have transcended obsession. I'm going to once again polish the ego of Locutus de Borg, who I've called the elder statesman of the watch community online, who seems to have transcended to watch ninja status or watch sage status. And he has his two watches, and he doesn't seem to obsess about the next thing, or his watches in the way that I've seen a lot of others do. Speaking of obsession, I am driving by my destination, and I'm going to drive 15 more minutes to go to a jewelry store that has a nice selection of watches, because I haven't been to I actually went to Tourneau in Burlington, Mass the other day. Because I was picking up my brother and sister-in-law and their daughter, and at the Boston airport, and I stopped there was a Tourneau on the way, and I was very, very disappointed, to be honest. It didn't have Omega or Rolex or Breitling. I don't know why. They had some used Breitlings and Omegas and Rolexes, but they didn't have a dedicated section. I was really hoping to go and in particular look at the I haven't seen a Planet Ocean or a Man on the Moon watch in the metal in quite some time. I think the last time I saw one was when I was in New York back in winter, or was it late winter, early spring. So I went to get another look at them, because I've in terms of the collection endgame idea, I've been thinking again about how would I complete my collection, or how would I'm going to do a big sell-off here, and then I've considered getting a Speedmaster of some kind, perhaps a Moonwatch or a Broad Arrow or something like that. So yeah, so we have, back to the topic of this video, the watch collector the enthusiast, and the obsessive, and they're all overlapping. I don't think anyone is just one thing. And in a way, you could say the obsessive is somebody who, it's a different category than the collector and the enthusiast. But I think, you know, all of us watch people are somewhere on the spectrum from collector to enthusiast. I would say I'm more towards enthusiast than collector. I don't, again, a real collector, you know, and a collector might have a more measured pace to collecting because they don't plan on selling watches. Any new watch purchase isn't something that can be flipped later on necessarily. I tend to look at my watch collection as semi-liquid funds for potential other watches. I look at the ones that I don't want to sell, and then basically there's three groups. There's the ones I don't want to sell, there's the ones that I probably will sell eventually, and then there's the ones I know I'll sell. So the ones I know I'll sell they have like a liquid dollar value, and the ones I'm probably going to sell are really, I see them as potential resources for future purchases. For instance, if I do get a Planet Ocean or a Speedmaster, I'd probably have to sell sell two watches to get it. I'd probably have to sell the Ray Donovan Black Dial Quartz Seamaster and the Silver Dial Breitling Crosswind Racing. So part of what I would be doing is looking at those watches. Would I rather have a moon watch than those two watches? I actually don't. I think the answer is probably no, but I want to check that out. So I'll nip this one off, cut this one off. Tell me what you think. All right, later. Full search to see if anyone's already done this, already talked about this. Probably somebody has, but I wanted to do a little video of how I see the two terms being different, and throwing in a third term, obsessive. So your entire collection, and then you have sub-collections. You might have your rotation, which are the watches you wear on a regular basis, and then you might have a specific thing, like you might be into vintage dive watches, or military watches, or pilot watches, or something that's a little that's big. The difference between a collector and an enthusiast, it's there, but it's kind of subtle. It's subtle but significant, I would say. So a collector is someone who buys watches to keep them. A collector is somebody who, now that doesn't mean they keep all of their watches, but the intention with any watch is always to, they often have an underlying sort of collection philosophy, or it's not even just that, it's more like a theme to their collection, or they might have different collections within their larger collection. And I have talked a little bit about that, how you can have a... All right, folks, there's two words that get bandied around a lot as far as watch collecting goes. Specifically, collector versus enthusiast. Now, I don't know, I probably, before doing this video, I probably should have done a Google